All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the broadcast. This is Monday, July the 31st, 2017. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thanks for being with us for another edition of the broadcast. And right out of the gates here, ladies and gentlemen, we're just flat out of time to raise the funds that we need for our July 2017 operating cost budget. The minimum we need to keep everything going here on a monthly basis. As you know, I'm smack dab in the middle of this project, the Spellcasters 2, so this makes this one of the most crucial times. It's always crucial every month that we meet our goals, so we can just cover the minimum we need to keep everything going, the lights on, everything here. So, again, we're just flat out of time. This is it. This is the red alert time that we don't like to get to, but here we are again. So if you've procrastinated and haven't acted up until this point, it's time to act now, folks. We've got no time left here, and we can't fail and go under now. I mean, my God. The leaps and bounds that we're starting to take here with some of this information is just going beyond anything else anybody's doing, and to see this fail and go under at this juncture would just be a travesty beyond all words. So we need everybody to rally. Put your rally caps on. We need everybody to rally and pitch in whatever you can. Of course, everybody that contributes $100 will get 3 downloads of their choice from the download shop. If you already have those, you can choose to have them sent to somebody else's email address. You want to give them away, you can do that. Also get a name, your name, a name of your choice, whatever, in Spellcasters Volume 2 in the credits. You'll need to email me once you make your contribution and let me know what downloads you want and all that stuff. And the highest contributor will get a prize worth $500, and everybody who contributes $100 will be in the grand prize drawing for another prize. They'll be chosen at random. But the bottom line is, folks, we just got to have 100% of our operating cost goal no later than 3 p.m. Central Standard Time on Tuesday. You're not going to find the links to the fundraiser. I got to make this clear because I didn't make this clear before. You're not going to find the links to the fundraiser at my website. They're just not there. I've talked about it. My webmaster doesn't really do much in terms of updating stuff for me anymore, even when I send it to him. So the website's pretty much dead, DOA as it is right now. But I hope to remedy that in the future. I just don't have time to remedy it right now in the middle of a film project, another project I'm doing for a listener. And, I'm just swamped. And on top of that, we've got now less than 24 hours to raise our operating cost budget. So, I understand the website's a pain in the ass, but I have no time to deal with that right now, but I'll deal with it in the future. If you need to find the fundraising links for this, you can find them at our Facebook pages. The Global Reality Radio Network Facebook page, as well as the Josh Reeves filmmaker, talk show host, Explorer page, and also here in the Read More section of the YouTube video and in the comments. You can also use, if you'd like to go to my website, you can still contribute there by using the donate button at my website. You won't have to use PayPal if you use that. If you want to use a credit card or a debit card, just enter the numbers without signing into a PayPal account. You can do it that way. Another way to do it, if you don't have a PayPal account or a credit card or debit card, you have no excuse. You can take yourself to a Walgreens, CVS, whatever fucking drugstore, whatever's in your town, Walmart, Target, everywhere has these. Tons of places that are open 24 hours have these, so there's no excuse. You can go in, get one of those cards. I think you can put up to maybe $500, maybe more on each one. And then you just send me the card number, expiration, 3-digit code, all that information and stuff on the back of it. And I'll process it on my end like it's a credit card. Boom, it goes right into my account. And you can even send that through an anonymous email address if you want it to be 100% anonymous. But that's a way you can do it because you can pay cash for those cards. So it's totally untraceable. It's totally anonymous. So there's really all the excuses that people have had in the past. Well, I don't want to use PayPal. You don't have that excuse anymore. Well, I don't have a credit card, bank account. Well, you don't have that excuse anymore. Well, I want to be anonymous. You don't have that excuse anymore. But it's funny how so many people made those excuses, and then we give them a reason to not have that excuse, and still they didn't act. So That's the way it is. I'll tell you what. I'll make you a deal. If everybody contributes, and we reach 100% of our operating cost goal by 3 p.m. Central Standard Time tomorrow on Tuesday, I'll make every one of you out there listening a deal. It's kind of impossible for us to give everybody a prize. I'll make you this deal. If everybody contributes in the next 24 hours and gets that thing to 100% on the operating cost budget, I'll put every show in the month of August leading up to the 10-year anniversary in September. I'll put every single show, full show this month, including what I was talking about the other day with the news report, video report thing I want to start doing. I'll put them 100% for free up on YouTube for the month of August. Every single show. So if you want to keep the show from going to be partial shows and, having to buy we probably will go to that eventually. But the thing of it is, if everybody contributed every month regularly, and we didn't get to this point where we were wondering every month at the end of the month if we were going to get all of our funding, we would absolutely be able to put everything out on YouTube for free and in various formats or whatever and do more. That's been the problem. The honor system thing doesn't really work. If it worked, everybody would be doing it. None of the other thousands of shows out there would have to go to the free partial pay system. But I'm making every one of you a deal right now. If we can reach this, we don't have a choice. We got to reach 100% either way. But as an added incentive, I will not make the shows 100% archive only for the month of August if we reach 100% of our operating cost goal. And here's another added bonus. If for the August fundraiser, if we reach 100% of that goal before the last day of the fundraiser, which would be the first day of September, we'll do all the shows in September for the 10-year anniversary for free also. If not, we're going to be immediately going to the pay system. If we're late tomorrow and we don't get everything in we need by the 3 p.m. cutoff, we're immediately, the next show that gets posted will immediately be a partial show, and we'll immediately be going to the pay system overnight. So there it is. It's the ball's in your court, and we need everybody to act now. This is a rally of the troops. This is a rally of all of the soldiers out there and the individuals who are seeking the truth and are sick and tired of these shills and liars out there who don't want to do anything but make a name for themselves, become some sort of pseudo internet celebrity, and to attempt to let the ego drive everything they do. Nothing in this broadcast, nothing about this show has ever been ego driven, ever. And you can go back and listen to the 10 years of broadcasts I've done. It's never been about that. We have always stood for the search for truth and for the uncovering of the truths that are being hidden from us by these people who claim to be truthers. I never thought that was going to be my job or my job description when it comes to this stuff, but, you go where it takes you. That's it. And it's just, I'm tired of talking about it because it sounds like hype, but I'm not a hype man. That's another one of my big problems. I'm a terrible self-promoter and terrible hype man and pitch man. I just like to think that what I do speaks for itself. But when you hear me get excited and tell you something's going to be big, man, you got to understand that I'm not hyping it. This film Spellcasters 2 was just, like I said, it's even bigger than me. I thought Volume 1 was insane. The making of that was fucking nuts. The whole experience of making that film was just batshit crazy. But this is just, there's so much stuff in here that's truly unknown information. I mean, I can't tell you. That's, I guess that's what everybody strives for, or what you want 100% of the time. It's very difficult. And I never expected, I never expected this. I had the things that I wanted to discuss and what I wanted Volume 2 to be about. I never dreamed that I would end up not only uncovering stuff nobody's ever uncovered before, but also uncovered that all of these seemingly separate topics that I'm discussing in the film all connect to one another. That, to me, is the most mind-blowing thing. That's the kind of thing you can't plan. You know what I mean? You can't plan that's going to happen. It certainly was not a part of my plan. I never dreamed it would happen, and it did. I mean, that's true synchronicity. I mean, that's every time I've been on the, I don't know what you want to call it, the universe or whatever, but every time I've been on the path of a trail of information that I'm following, that kind of thing happens. It happened with the CMP stuff. It happened with the Rockwall stuff. And now it's happening with this spellcaster stuff. I mean, things that I never thought would connect together. You know, I never dreamed they're like all the stuff I found in Volume 1, the whole Scientology control and connection of the entire truth movement and its major figureheads going back to the very beginning. You know, coinciding with what I talked about with Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard's involvement, the Kennedy assassination, MK Ultra. It's just incredible. And so in Volume 2, connecting all of this stuff together, even on topics that people may think they know everything there is to know about, stuff like, you know, the Kurt Cobain death and also those we've been talking about with the fall stuff, the fake Paul McCartney stuff, which again, we're well past the point of stuff that anybody else has ever figured out with that. I'll tell you another interesting thing I've noticed in this research, especially on all this Beatles stuff and whatnot. I noticed that there's a lot of cases of, and I subsequently noticed this in the music of the person who also was the original Paul. There's a lot of cases where what the lyrics say on the lyric sheet in the album, and what eventually people just, because they read, you know, back in those days when you had an album, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, this is true. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band by the Beatles was the first album to ever have the lyrics printed inside. And so what you find is that a lot of these lyrics, you know, you read the lyrics and then sort of, you know, you're driving down the road and you hear whatever song by the Beatles on the radio, you just assume it's that word that John Lennon or whoever's saying, because that's what the lyric sheet said. But I found 2 or 3 examples, and I believe they're all John as well, which is another interesting thing, where there's one thing printed on the lyric sheet, but then when you listen to what he's actually saying, he's saying, like, for instance, in the song A Day in the Life, which is ostensibly about the alleged car wreck of the original McCartney, which of course we now know is bullshit. But it's the line where he says, if you read the lyric sheet and you listen to the try this, because it'll blow your mind. You'll see immediately what I'm talking about here. And so then all the other examples I'll give you will make more sense. But try this. You can even pull it up on YouTube or whatever. You can pull the lyrics up online too. But pull up the song A Day in the Life by the Beatles. And it's the part where John says, nobody was really, in the lyrics she says, nobody was really sure if he was from the House of Lords. It says Lord, House of Lords on the lyric sheet, right? But listen closely. You can play it back over and over again. I swear to God, you can play it every volume. I did it, and I was blown away because it's one of those things. It's like a brain trick. And this is another one of those clear examples of how you know that the Tavistock Institute and the social engineering, it really is weaponry. I mean, you know, you call it music, but we're talking about stuff that starts to become like psychotronic weaponry at this stage. But it's like a brain trick. It's word association. You know, if you if you see it, say House of Lords, and then that becomes what the lyric is to you. You can hear it a million times and you'll always hear Lords. But when someone like I'm doing now points it out to you, and then you say to that person, even if you've heard the song a million times, go and listen to it now. And listen to the part where he says, where it sounds like he's saying House of Paul or House of Fall, maybe even. Clearly. I heard the song a million times and never noticed it. Because I, like everybody else, probably read the lyric sheet or whatever and thought you said, because I remember singing that song in the car, years ago or whatever with a friend, and I remember specifically saying that lyric. But you only say that lyric because you think that's what you've read in the lyric sheet. But listen to it. It sounds like he's saying nobody was really sure if he was from the House of Paul. He's clearly not saying House of Lords. You can hear it. But it's kind of, it kind of goes into that echo part. So it kind of sounds like Fall or Paul, but it echoes off. Fall. It's like an echoey thing. You can hear he's not saying House of Lords. It's very interesting. And there's another example I found of that. And this one I'd heard for years, but never heard any explanation for it and didn't ever really pay attention to until I started to find these other anomalies like that in the songs. But, on the White Album, you've got, that's what's interesting, that those three records from Sgt. Pepper, the White Album, and Abbey Road, right? The final three records they did. All three of those records are hints to the whole Paul is dead thing, and interesting that people didn't find out for years. But I mean, about the cover of Sgt. Pepper with, obviously that's a funeral scene there, and you got the people that are gathered around the funeral scene for the original Paul. Then the second record in the series of three that all tie into this thing is the White Album. Now, if you've never owned a copy of the White Album, never looked at it, you kind of have to see it. It's a hymn book, a song book, like you would have in a church or at a funeral. It's got the little crosses next to the lyrics. It's like a song book, like a hymnal. So if you would sing at a funeral, and then of course the famous Abbey Road cover where one's the grave digger, one's the priest. I mean, so across all three of those, you've got examples of this. But on the White Album, you have the three different versions of Revolution, right? You've got Revolution 1, Revolution 2, and then Revolution 9. And Revolution 1 is, I guess, is the sort of slow acoustic kind of version, and then Revolution 2 is the rocked out distortion version. Now, if you read the lyrics of that, there's a lyric in there where John says, it tells that it's evolution, well, And if you listen to that recording, you can hear clearly that John says, and when that line when it says they tell us that it's evolution, he says you can clearly he says that it's evolution. He puts Jew in there, so he's saying evolution instead of. It's clear. I know you've probably heard that in the song, but that's clearly he's throwing that in there. And then of course where he says you can count me out in. If you talk about destruction, don't you know that you can count me out in? But clearly he says, he can hear it. And I've turned it up and analyzed everything. I've never found any mention of them talking about that in any interviews or everything I've looked. But he's peppering in the word Jew to make, tell you that it's evolution. Instead of evolution, he's saying, tell us that it's evolution. You can hear that he overdubbed that. Like he sang it once, evolution, and then came in on an overtake and went, tell us that it's evolution. You can hear him poke that in there. Evolution, like he's like a reference to the Jews. And then if you listen to the song, this is interesting. I always thought this was hilarious because I've heard this on the radio. I've shown people this going down the road before. If you listen to the song, Baby, You're a Rich Man, which, of course, John wrote about Brian Epstein, their manager. Interesting, one of the things that I'm pointing out in the film is that Brian Epstein, as far as I've been able to find, is the earliest example of someone in the music business being suicided. It's funny, the Beatles were ground zero for so many things, including, and this is what I'll be presenting in the film, including, these people being suicided to further their agenda. But in the song Baby, You're a Rich Man, which John wrote about Brian Epstein. And you know the song, Baby, You're a Rich Man Too. If you listen you have to crank it up. And it's towards the end of the song, right? I don't know if it's in the fade out or right before the fade out. It's right as it's fading out. Sometimes on the radio, you'll notice they'll intentionally cut the song before it gets. If you ever hear it on the radio, they'll intentionally cut the song sometimes before it gets to that point. Not always, but oftentimes they will. And there's a reason why. Because if you listen very close to the end, you crank it up, you can hear. There's one of the times when John says it, and he said, instead of saying "Baby, you're a rich man too," he says, "Baby, you're a rich fag Jew." Which, of course, Brian Epstein was. I mean, he was a rich fag Jew. That's an accurate description. He was a rich, homosexual, Jewish man. And you can hear it. He clearly says it at the end. Baby, you're a rich fag Jew. Right? And there's also, so this is something they did on and on and on. And, of course, the person who was originally Paul in his music does that same thing as well. It's very interesting. You'll see all this in the film. But I also heard this. I can't find where this is from. It's like a demo version of "Let It Be" with Fall singing, and I guess he's just kind of putting the words together, you know. And he was known as William or Bill and all that. Billy Shepherd, and he's singing "Let It Be," and he says, "And though they may be parted, there is still a chance, Bill, that they will see." Throw it in the Bill thing and the references. So again, it's interesting to listen to this. There's just stuff that I've come across, and as often times happens when you're putting together a film and a project like this, just things that you've never noticed, stuff that comes into. Well, it's that old idea of hiding stuff in plain sight, and that's that's a very old Masonic ideal, and even goes back probably even earlier than that. And I think that's one of the things that people have not, especially in the archaeological field, have not yet quite put together. Not quite put together correctly when looking at some of this ancient archaeological stuff and the symbols, and especially stuff in Egypt. There's stuff it's just hiding right there in plain sight. But if you don't have a reference point for it, then it means nothing to you. It's meaningless. And this is why over the past, say, 20, 30 years or whatever, 20 years, there's been such an increase in interest in the ancient sites in Iraq and Iran, and as I've talked about many, many times, the acquisition and the, just total cover-up of these ancient antiquities and ancient sites for that exact reason. When people first started going into ancient civilizations, specifically archaeologists and people that worked for governments, 50, 100 years ago, whatever, everything that they were observing and seeing was still only being referenced against everything humans knew up to that point, right? But since then, what have we had? We've had, technological explosions on the planet. We have advanced technologically faster than the human race. Over the past 50, 60 years, we've advanced technologically faster than the human race has for its entire existence up to this point. I mean, it's just no kind of advanced, that's another thing we already know, but no kind of explosion happens that quickly in a short amount of time without there being some sort of interference or something there to help jumpstart. Just like, if you believe in anything that we're told about so-called phony evolution, things are supposed to evolve over long periods of time, except humans are the only thing that doesn't. Everything else on Earth took millions of years or however long to evolve. All of a sudden here, humans appear virtually overnight already evolved. Again, that it just something in that does not add up. So because we now know of things like, the human genome, and we've cracked the human genome, and we know about DNA and genetics, and we know all of this stuff, What's happened over the past 20 years, and this is, again, what ties into the reasons behind 9/11 and wanting to go immediately into Iraq and them, plundering and destroying all these ancient sites. And now ISIS has been doing that on behalf of course, Israeli intelligence, CIA, British intelligence. They're all gangbanging us all together. These people are not separate. After we started advancing technologically and had a better understanding for things, then we started to see, oh shit, people are going to start figuring out things like stargates and things like genetics and these symbols and whatnot. That's why there's been such an advance to cover up these ancient sites more and more, because, again, 40, 50, 60, 100 years ago, the stuff that's like the stuff I'm talking about that's in the rock wall, like it producing energy and producing, being made of all these very rare crystals that don't just form in the ground naturally. They have to be extracted from other elements and then put into something to make stones. Produce things that produce electricity strictly by sound waves being applied to them. People wouldn't have had a context for that. Now we have a greater understanding for these things because we've evolved technologically. So now when somebody sees something in an ancient site that's depicting DNA or advanced technology or something, it's a lot easier for people to be able to pick this out. And the powers that be have started to figure this out and have worked towards keeping this stuff covered up even farther. And that's why they've tried to keep the rock wall and all these other stuff that I've attempted to uncover covered up. So that's what we're starting to see with all of this. I think a lot of the truth, a lot of the stuff is that we've been talking about is going to come out eventually, but they're going to try everything they can to keep us distracted and to keep everybody. The biggest problem, and this is why we're going to see a total paradigm shift event happen eventually, whether it's a staged alien invasion or something like that. Because they need a game-changing event to happen that will steer everybody in the world's belief systems towards the same thing. That's the biggest problem now, is there's too much uncovered truth. That's why you hear recently they put out some more JFK documents. They're having a big problem right now because people's understanding of true reality has finally, for the first time, even though it's still not the mass amount of numbers that it's going to take to make a difference, there are still now, because of the internet, enough people who are conscious of this stuff who weren't conscious of it before and didn't have the ability to see the stuff that's, trying to trick them and keep them, what's the word I'm looking for? Mesmerized and, what's the other word I'm looking for? What do you call that? When hypnotized? Yeah, can't believe I couldn't think of that word. But that's what it is. That people are no longer as easily hypnotized by this stuff as they were before, and it started to become a problem. So they need something. That's why the staged alien invasion thing is such a good card for them to play, because they need something where it's going to. I mean, look, if you've seen the news today. I mean, they're inching us closer towards this staged World War III scenario. And again, don't buy into any of this stuff and think that any of these people are enemies with one another. These guys are all behind the scenes slapping five and slapping towels on each other's asses like it's the fucking Super Bowl, laughing, giggling, having a good time. Because, when they have a Democrat in office, Democratic president, ain't a better gun salesman in the world than a Democratic president. This gives the people the illusion that under a Democratic president there's less war. No. Well, that may be true. Maybe the perception that maybe that there's less war. But the only reason there's less war is because the weapons manufacturers, as long as the weapons manufacturers are making their money, there's no need for a war. When you have a Democratic president or someone in office and there's no war, well, then that's when you have the right-wing rhetoric kick up. They're coming for our guns. They're coming for our guns. Everybody's buying guns, stockpiling guns and ammo. I mean, look at what happened under Obama. It was insane. Now you got a Republican president in there. Not as much worry from that constituency that they're going to be coming for guns now. So gun sales are way down. So what do you do when gun sales are way down? You kick up and you start up the wars and rumors of wars again. Sometimes you don't even need a war. You just need rumors of war, and that's enough to get the machinery going again. And again, that's all a part of the big weapons manufacturers. Look into how much money these weapons manufacturers and the big military industrial complex, Raytheon and all the rest of them, British Aerospace, Lockheed Martin, all the rest of it. How much money these companies generate. And all they need is that there might be a skirmish, there might be a war. And that's enough for them to kick production in and to start selling off more big weapons. And all these guys, it doesn't matter if it's Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump or whoever, these guys are all in bed and heavily invested in with the military-industrial complex, the weapons manufacturers, the medical-industrial complex who create the pharmaceuticals and drugs. These guys are in bed with these people, and they make millions and billions off the table, off the books, for the policies they push and the agendas that they further, and the idea of, again, the only thing better than a war, or the only thing is, the only thing as good as a war, just about as good as a war, is a rumor of a war. And the only thing better than we're coming for your guns is they might be coming for your guns. That's all it takes. I mean, they should have fucking given Barack Obama some sort of, I think the weapons manufacturer should have at least sent Barack Obama a fucking fruit basket or, a fucking card, gift card or something. I mean, do the brother a solid. Send him something. That motherfucker made y'all more money than you probably would make off of a war. And why? All you had to do is threat. We got a Democrat in there. He's going to probably come for your guns. That's all it took. I had a friend of mine say, I'm not voting for Donald Trump because I like him. I'm voting for him because if I don't vote for him, then he sells guns. If I don't vote for him, then I'm not going to have a job anymore. And I'm thinking, wow, that's some fucking logic. So let me get this straight. You've sold more guns in the past 8 years than you ever have with a Democratic president in there, right? Yeah, okay. If Donald Trump lost, you would have Hillary Clinton in there, right? So Hillary Clinton in there means you're not going to have a job anymore? Because I would argue that if you just had the best gun salesman Democrat in there forever, another Democrat would mean people would be buying even more. Never has there been a case where a Republican president sells more guns. No, that's just not the case. If people think their rights and their guns are protected under a Democratic president, they're not going to be buying as many. But that's what it's been about, man. I mean, again, this is one of the reasons they offed Kennedy, aside from the Scientology stuff and the rest of it. But, I mean, of course, it tied into that. He wanted to splinter the CIA. That was, at that time, of course, the CIA and Scientology. That's why there was mutual interest there. It was beyond just the fact that Kennedy had Scientology raided and had all their e-meters and everything confiscated. By the way, you can see all this, more information on that in Spellcasters Volume 1. But, of course, he fired all the big guys in the CIA and threatened to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces, as he stated. So, that would have brought that down, too, and the big military-industrial complex. Guys, anybody who's ever messed with that, and, of course, the Vietnam War, he wanted to end Vietnam. So this is why you saw such an explosion. Brown and Root, all these contractors getting these contracts to dredge Cam Ranh Bay in Vietnam and all that. I mean, all that was about these big million and billion dollar no bid contracts that these military industrial complex companies are given because the chief shareholders in those companies were people like LBJ. I mean, just like in the modern day, Dick Cheney and Halliburton and the rest of it, who got all the bids and all the contracts for Iraq over there. Halliburton. Oh, I wonder why that. Well, maybe it's because the vice president is one of the honchos. So don't buy into all this fear-mongering World War III shit. These people want a reaction out of you, so you will react in the way that furthers their agenda. Whether that's buying guns, not buying guns, whether that's, no matter what it is. But all of it is about keeping people in fear so they can continue their goal of depopulation. That's really what it's all about. That's the only reason they want wars, besides the fact that the people who are in charge stand to make billions off of the sale of these weapons. The other one is depopulation. And that's what they're moving towards. So all this stuff going, all this stuff, and it's convenient all of a sudden that, now we're at odds with Russia all of a sudden, blah 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 blah. Yeah. Once it started getting too exposed that they've been in bed with each other and all that stuff, now it's like, we better hurry quick, make it look like we're enemies. All right, what else we got here? CIA gives more power to spies to bolster intelligence operations. This should be a good indicator. And I remember seeing this happen too. I mean, it does happen. I mean, this is stuff you got to look for. I remember them talking about, what was that, like 2009, like the second year under Obama, when they were talking about Cass Sunstein and these, how they were going to be sending infiltrators and spooks, to cause divide and conquer within, conspiracy there's truth. I saw it, man. I saw it happen. We used to have a chat room for the show, and I saw it happen right around that time. You had tons of spooks and some people, infiltrators coming out of the woodworks, poison in the well, muddy in the waters. Look for that to be on the increase, ladies and gentlemen, until the end of this year, and then ramp up even more into 2018. Remember my words on this show right now. Remember that I said this. You are going to see very soon more than you're already seeing, which is plentiful, but over the next 6 months to a year, you're going to see, remember I told you this, a massive increase in disinformation, in COINTEL, whatever you want to call it. You are going to see a ramp up of this. They are ramping it up left and right because the goal is to associate all people like you and me who are independent truth seekers. That's why they've been giving Alex Jones so much press. They want to associate all truth seekers with Alex Jones so that when you bring up any kind of truth or anything about anything, you're automatically associated with him, this guilt by association. And this is why I'm so glad now that, it's almost been 10 years since I went on my show and basically emancipated myself from the whole so-called truth movement and said, I'm not with them. I'm not a part of that. I'm my own separate person. I do not judge me and my research against them. And that's why I'm glad that I've, done so much to expose these guys, because that's the ultimate goal. That's what they want. And that's why they're giving Alex Jones so much press now. They need somebody big so they can get everybody out there who doesn't know anything about this stuff to not believe in the things that we're talking about and trying to get you to be informed about that have nothing to do with what Alex Jones talks about on his show. Doesn't matter. That's the goal. They want to associate all free-thinking individuals and people who have been able to break free and see through this matrix reality to be associated with that guy. And you are going to see a massive ramp up in this stuff in COINTEL and in shill operations. You're going to see it more and more and more than you are seeing it now over the next 6 months to a year. And I want you to remember that. Scientists can now turn crystals into reusable electric conductors. Well, welcome to the party. You guys are a few thousand years too late. Go back and ask the Lemurians. Back and ask the Atlanteans. People have been using crystals to produce energy and to store data for thousands of years. Yeah, you ain't hearing about that on National Geographic. You ain't reading about that in your fucking 8th grade science book. Doesn't mean it's not a fact. For some time, scientists have been experimenting with crystals to see if they can become a new kind of memory storage. Oh, a new kind of memory storage, yeah. Thousands of years, buddy, thousands of years. Now, scientists at Washington State University, you can store data on a crystal and it will not be corrupted virtually ever. It will stay intact for thousands of years. That's going to be the next thing. You'll be buying computers over the next 10 to 20 years that have crystal hard drives. Watch. And they'll act like this is some new breakthrough for humanity. And really all it is more of them decoding and figuring out how to use in the modern day technology that has existed on this planet for thousands of years. But they'll use it to prop up, the scientific breakthroughs and greatness of mankind. Researchers have been studying the possibilities of using crystals to conduct electricity, but it required extreme heat. Oh, that's so fucking hilarious. Again, let me point you in the direction of something that's been sitting, that was built 432,000? Yeah, something like that. You watch Lost Secrets 1, it's in there. 432,000 years old. The rock wall. That's what it does. And that's why one of the many crystals that is used in it is niobium. And again, niobium was not even discovered until the late 1800s. It's used in rocket engines, jet engines, pipelines, anything where you're going to have high conductivity and high amounts of heat. You would use niobium because it reduces the heat factor. Now, again, niobium can only be found in an element called columbite. You have to get columbite, and then you have to, through a chemical process, extract the niobium from the columbite, and then you can then put it into your other steel or metals or whatever else to keep the heat down when you're having high conductivity, which is aka producing and generating energy. And that's why you have all these crystals in the rock wall. That's why you have, the two primary crystals are, of course, zircon and garnet. But you have zircon, garnet, tourmaline, starlight, titanite, brookite. And when you put them in blocks and then press them on top of each other, the weight pressing down on the other stones below it, along with the application of a low-frequency oscillation or low-frequency wave, much like the backhoe that was sitting on top of the rock wall during John Lindsay's dig, which caused the entire wall to vibrate in situ and start to roar and produce an electric current. That piezoelectrical energy is a result of these crystals, and whoever engineered this wall engineered it with these elements like niobium to keep that extreme heat from producing energy down. And this fucking sentence here, researchers have been studying the possibilities of using crystals to conduct electricity, but it required extreme heat. And here we got in fucking Rockwall, Texas, underneath the fucking ground, we've got the oldest civilization ever found on the fucking planet. Oh, did I not iterate that enough in all my work and all the years I've talked about that in my Lost Secrets of Ancient America Films, Volume 1 and 2? Yeah. Oldest fucking civilization evidence of that ever found on the fucking planet, folks. This is not just some rock formation underground. We're talking about a 20 mile in diameter wall that also served as a seawall is aligned to the equinoxes and solstices, had shark's teeth embedded in the outside of it because it was a seawall, and the soil data shows conclusively it was covered up in a catastrophic event in the Gulf of Mexico somewhere in the neighborhood of 13,000 years ago. And we know what that was. Comet event or whatever that caused a great flood. And here these motherfuckers are talking about, oh, we thought about the possibility of using crystals to conduct electricity, but it required extreme heat. Again, that's what I was talking about, the whole niobium thing. That's what smashes the whole idea that the thing could be anything but an artificial structure, the rock wall, that is. Once the crystals returned to room temperature, the effect faded within days. That's why there's tourmaline in the rock wall. And again, tourmaline's another one of those minerals that you just don't get on it. It just doesn't form in the ground on its own. It has to form in quartz, and it has to be extracted from quartz. So what happened to all that quartz? Well, they used the tourmaline. Why would they need the tourmaline? Well, they put the tourmaline in with the other minerals in the stones because tourmaline is actually used. I'll tell you who uses the largest amount of tourmaline is Hewlett-Packard. Hewlett-Packard actually employs the world's top crystal experts and have for decades. Because tourmaline is the only stone that will not shatter when super high or super low frequency waves, sound waves, are applied to it. Pretty much every other crystal there is, it'll shatter. Tourmaline won't. So that's why they mix tourmaline in with the other crystals that are within the structure of the stones of the rock wall, because obviously they needed to apply sound waves to this wall to get it to produce energy. And everything they needed in it, niobium, titanite, which I believe is where titanium comes from. Titanite has it. I mean, again, these are structural engineering materials. A friend of mine, his cousin's an oil geologist, and we showed him some of the data of the rock. He said the most interesting thing about that material, those stones could not have been. His quote was, "The stones could not have been made in Earth's current gravity." I mean, wrap your fucking head around that real quick. But again, just like I talked about in the last show, they always do this. They'll talk about technologies and act like, oh, we're just now trying to figure it out, when in reality they've had it figured out for years. But that's what they do. They like to keep stuff under wraps and call anybody, like me or anybody else, a kook and a whack and a crazy for exposing this stuff. Oh no, it's natural. You're crazy if you think it's anything but natural. And then what they like to do is keep it hidden until they figure out how it works and then roll it out as a new human discovery. I mean, Thomas Jefferson did the same thing with the city grid layout of Alexandria, Virginia. He supposedly created the whole layout of the city, and to this day is given credit for that, when in reality, he was digging up all these ancient mounds and all these ancient sites on his property, and he actually discovered that this city grid for Alexandria in Virginia had already existed and was already there. And it was actually proof that there was a separate culture, which was the commonly held scientific belief in this country until after the Trail of Tears and wiped all the Indians out and said, "Oh, they're not worth anything. We should just wipe them out." Go and start wiping them out, and then they start discovering all these ancient sites, and whoa, wait a second here. Obviously, they couldn't have been responsible for this. This is deeper. Okay, well, we're going to reverse course. We're going to say we're sorry, and all of this stuff was all done by Native American Indians. End of story. That was why. Because Thomas Jefferson started discovering, wait a second, this could not have been done. This was done with a level of sophistication and knowledge of mathematics and astronomy and everything else the Native Americans just simply didn't have, plus a knowledge of the base 66 sexagesimal numerical system, which goes back to the Babylonians. So instead of bringing these findings out and challenging the status quo belief systems of his time, he just covered it up and took credit for it. And this is not uncommon. Vladimir Putin is reportedly richer than Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos combined. Of course. Again, why do you think him and fucking Trump are... I talked about this earlier. Why do you think they're such big buds? This is all about money, and these motherfuckers wanting more money, and they use wars and rumors of wars and everything else and the destruction of national sovereignty to be able to line their pockets. I mean, I don't know how many more times I can fucking say it. Charlie Sheen thinks the moon is hollow, according to Rob Lowe. Charlie Sheen is right. God damn, did I just say that? Those words just come out of my mouth. Did I literally just say Charlie Sheen is right? I did. And guess what? At this time, he's actually right. Thank you for actually doing your homework there, Charlie. Of course, he'll be called a kook and a crazy. And this is why they brought him out years ago with Jones and the whole 9/11 thing. I mean, this was reported, I believe it was Popular Mechanics magazine, 1967, maybe 68. And yeah, it was like an interview with Wernher von Braun, of all people, former head of the Nazi space program, brought over here after World War II during Project Paperclip to head up NASA. And yeah, it's a whole article in there from the late 60s. I mean, nobody even argued with it or contested it at the time at all. No one said he was a kook. No one said he was a crazy. This went out in mainstream publications. He talked about how when various probes and whatnot were sent to the moon, when they landed, the moon, and when you strike the moon with any kind of an object, it shakes and vibrates and rings like a bell. It appears to be hollow inside. So, what I haven't read all this, and I don't know what they're talking about here, but I'm sure they're going to try and, make this more crazy, insane bullshit from Charlie Sheen. But, unfortunately, not everything can be written off to that. I mean, Wernher von Braun, his mentor was Dr. Hermann Oberth. Okay, the guy that taught him everything he knew. Dr. Hermann Oberth is considered the father of modern rocket science. He is revered even today as the father of modern rocket science. And he was quoted as saying, our technological advancements have not come strictly as a result of human ingenuity. We have been helped, and we have been helped by beings from other worlds. This guy was not a kook or a crackpot or a crazy either. This is, the father of modern rocket science. So let's read this. Rob Lowe investigates mysteries and legends over land and sea in his upcoming A&E series, The Lowe Files, lending credence to myths so outlandish as Bigfoot. Oh, this is great. Really? So Rob Lowe, of all fucking people? Jesus Christ. You ever see Californication? Watch Rob Lowe in that. He does like a fucking Tom Cruise meets Brad Pitt type. It's fucking. It's just fucking over the top. I took a man in my mouth once. I mean, it's just fucking ridiculous. So now they got Rob Lowe is now like Mr. Conspiracy. I mean, this is just out of control. But apparently he won't go as far as Charlie Sheen. Lowe and his sons, who also appear in the upcoming show, spoke about it in front of a crowd of journalists as part of the Television Critics Association's summer press tour in Beverly Hills on Friday. At one point, Variety noted, the actor's sons revealed feeling skeptical after learning their father and a famous friend believed the moon is hollow. Lowe then intervened to reveal his friend's identity as Charlie Sheen and to state that of the two of them, only Sheen believes the moon is hollow. Huffington Post reached out to Sheen's rep for the actor's take on the cosmos. Rob Lowe, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, what did he say? Of course, hollow moon theory is not backed up in any evidence in the scientific community. Again, it was in Popular Mechanics. It was an article by Wernher von Braun where he talked extensively about it. It's been out there for years. It was put out and published. It wasn't easy to get fake news and stuff like that back in those days out. I mean, there was a much more rigorous. Now, anybody can put anything out there. You can pay any amount of money. You can get any story put out there. I mean, if you got a few $1,000 to spend, you can get a news story out tomorrow on every major news service in the country, in the world, that says the sky is fucking purple and raining fucking frogs. And that motherfucker will get printed because that's all it takes. I mean, it's just hilarious to me that fucking article's been sitting there for 50 fucking years now. It came out time. Nobody contested it. Nobody said Wernher von Braun's a kook and a freak. I mean, obviously, we couldn't get a fucking rocket off the ground till we brought him over here. He was not considered a crank or kook. Yeah, he was an ex-Nazi, but all those guys were, of course, absolved of all that for the work they did with NASA. So NASA didn't contend that. NASA didn't say, oh, no, we don't agree with what von Braun said here. But, of course, they don't even mention that here in this article because just like everything else, it doesn't matter how true something is. If they don't know it to be true from what they've been taught and told in school, then it must be a conspiracy theory. Of course, hollow moon theory is not backed up by any evidence in the scientific community, but some conspiracy theorists are seemingly encouraged by observations that the moon rings like a bell. A hollow moon is also featured in science fiction article author H.G. Wells' 1901 novel, The First Trip. Oh, well, let's not even talk about H.G. Wells. Give me a fucking break. British intelligence all the way out the fucking wazoo. He's on the cover of fucking Sergeant Pepper, too. Let's not even go there. War of the Worlds, let's not even go there. That was, again, another public acclamation test. So, of course, they don't say anything else about this or about the show or any other reasons why. It's just in exactly as I predicted here. Let's just connect it with Charlie Sheen. Let's make it seem like it's batshit crazy. But what I don't understand is the motivation behind it. Other than it just furthers the what we already know is that, just like everything else, the moon is just one of many, many of the other millions of things we've been fucking absolutely lied about, from the very beginning. I mean, I've always said, if you really wanted to find extraterrestrial life, you needn't really look any further than the moon. There have been people up there doing mining projects and building structures and stuff forever and ever. Have you ever looked at through a high-powered telescope of the moon for any amount of time? You can see all kinds of stuff going on up there, man. It's just unbelievable. But yet everybody else is looking elsewhere. We've been coexisting with other, other beings from other places for a very long time on this planet. It's just they've started to operate more in secret than they used to. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we got for you for today. I don't have anything else to say other than ball's in your court and it's red alert time. It's crunch time. We need everybody to contribute. Go back and listen to the beginning of the show again to hear all the deals and stuff we're offering. But it's red alert. Make your contributions now. TheGlobalReality.com. You can use the donate button. Use the we got to reach 100% of our operating cost goal. We've got the banner thing. It's on our Facebook page and here in the video on YouTube. Please act now, folks, and keep us alive. And let's keep this thing going free for the next month. All right, folks. We'll see you next time. Take care.